Hello, I'm Bob Carlson, and I make krumkake. Now, krumkakes are crumble cookies, and they're a Norwegian dessert, and they're made with a krumkake iron. I think it's pronounced krumkake in Norwegian, but I'm not quite sure. Anyway, in this video, I'm going to show you how I make my krumkakes. Well, first you need a krumkake iron. This is the box that the krumkake iron comes in. It's a Nordic ware product, and it's made of cast aluminum. The original ones were made of cast iron, but the aluminum works perfectly well. This is the krumkake iron. It comes from Nordic ware, cast aluminum, as I said. And above it you can see the little wooden dowel, a little cone, that you wrap the warm krumkake around, and it keeps its shape after it cools. So how you operate this, you put this on the stove, and I'll show you that in a bit, and you heat it up pretty warm. Open it up, put the dab of batter here, close it down, and it will spread the batter to the round shape. And then about every 10 seconds you flip it, and then you flip it again. So in about 20 seconds it's done. You open up the iron, peel off the wafer cookie, which is nice and warm and flexible and slightly brown. Mostly tan is a good color to get the right flavors. And you wrap it around this dowel, and in about just a few seconds it hardens, and then you keep its shape. Next, I use 6 ingredients: flour, sugar, eggs, cornstarch, cardamom, and vanilla. I don't use any water or milk as some recipe calls for, because I find that the batter is just the right thickness to put a dab on my krumkake iron and make the round cookies. So here we go. I mentioned before that there were 6 ingredients. I correct myself, there are 7 ingredients, and I said there were flour, sugar, eggs, 2 eggs that is, a half a stick of butter melted and then cooled, the cornstarch, cardamom, and vanilla. So let's begin. The first thing you do is mix some of the dry ingredients, the flour, the cornstarch, and the cardamom, into a bowl. I usually use the smaller bowl because later I will add these dry ingredients into the wet ingredients. Then in another bowl, I'll mix the wet ingredients. I'll take the melted and slightly cooled butter and put that into 3/4 of a cup of sugar with a 1/4 teaspoon of vanilla, and I'll mix that with a whisk pretty well. Once mixed, I'll add the eggs one at a time. First, the 1 egg goes in, mix that up until it's blended, and then put the second egg in and mix it up till it's blended. To my wet ingredient mix, I'm going to add the flour mix here and blend that together with the whisks. So you want to add about half of it at a time, like that. Blend that around really well. Got to be careful at first so it doesn't spill all over the place. That flour can get everywhere. And that's why I use maybe 1/3 of it at a time, half of it at a time. It's up to you, whatever you'd like to do. But you mix that really well until it gets nice and blended. You can see it's now becoming a nice thicker mixture, but that's not quite as thick as we want it, so we add the rest of the flour and blend that in. Notice I'm scraping the sides with my whisk to make sure I get all the flour mixed in. Okay, and there it is. You see how thick it is? Like a thick pancake batter. Now, if you find it's not as thick as you want it, and maybe this could be slightly thicker on there, you add a little more flour and just add a touch at a time, which I'm going to do. like that. And that should give me the consistency I'm looking for. Yeah, that's a little better. It doesn't matter so much, except if it's too thin, it'll really spill out the sides of the Krumkake iron, and that can burn, and it smells, and it's no fun. So you just want to learn how thick that should be. See it now? That's like a thick pancake batter, and I think that's just going to work fine for us. Okay, here we are at the stove, and it's an electric stove. Some people ask me, can you use a Krumkake iron on an electric stove? And the answer is yes, you can. It works perfectly well. I set the setting to number 7 on my stove to start with, to get it heated up. I'm going to close the top so it warms up. And I then go back down to probably a 6.5 or a 6 as I am baking. Actually, I don't know if you call it baking, but as I'm making the Krumkakes, and I want to keep it from overcooking and getting too brown. Here I have my mixture. There's my batter. And over here I have a flat surface. You could use any flat surface. I happen to use a bamboo cutting board, but you could actually just use the counter. It doesn't matter. And on top of that, I put a paper towel. And then on top of the paper towel, I put the dowel. And to spoon out the batter, I use 2 teaspoons. And to take the Krumkake off the iron when it's ready, I use this little butter knife. And I'll show you that in a minute. So now we're just waiting for the iron to heat up. One thing I should mention at this point is I do take some oil. This is just plain old oil. And I put it on a brush, and I brush the plates for the first Krumkake. And then the butter in the mixture will take care of lubricating the remainder of them. So just a little bit of oil, and I mean just, whoops, a drop, that's a little too much. And just brush this on. See, I'm brushing on both plates. And you really don't need much of this at all. Just a dab will do ya. Close that down and let it heat up. Okay, I think the Krumkake iron has heated up enough. I'm going to open it and take one of my spoons and take about that much, if you can see it there, and put it right in the middle of the Krumkake iron. Close down the iron. You don't have to press it down. And then I'll flip it over like this. Flip it over again. In the beginning, until the iron is fully heated, it may be a little more. You can see it's quite pale there. We'll give it a little more time. But once it heats up, it'll be quite a fast process. And I have my butter knife ready to remove it. And if any pieces, any of the batter comes out the side, wipe it off with a paper towel like this. None has. Okay. Take the Krumkake out like this. Put it down on, you can see the nice texture it is. Put it down on the dowel. Wrap it around the cone dowel like that. And leave it just like that. Can you see that? And now that'll harden in just a little bit. So we'll go back to our iron. So there's another dab. Twisty spoon so you don't get excess. Press it down. Let it spread. And see it's spreading a little bit on this side. I'm going to wipe that off. Leave it. Flip it over. Okay. Put your knife under the thin crook, and it's very thin at this point. I'm going to go over here, put it down on my board, and roll around. You can see the inside is actually getting a little cooked more than the outside. And also you can notice that the butter within the batter is taking care of any sticking problems, which you don't have any at all. Okay, we'll make a few more of these. And again, dab in the middle. like that. Spin your spoons to get the excess. Put down the iron. Look for any kind of excess here. There's a little bit on the side. Just wipe that off with a paper towel and flip your iron over. Now I'm still at a 7 on my stove, and that seems to be working well. If I find they're cooking too quickly, I'll go back to a 6.5 and perhaps a 6. There you go. See how quickly that cooked this time? Because the iron is nicely heated. I'm flipping it over to my board, rolling it on my dowel, and I'm ready for the next one. And this is how quickly you actually make these things. Down. Nope, there's a little excess. Wipe that off. Flip it over. That's a good time to flip it over when the iron is nicely hot. When you see that excess coming out the side, it's a good time to flip it over, and you should have a perfect Krumkake in that short of a time. That means we are actually up to the right temperature and cooking well. One last time. I put the Krumkake to start with, the iron lid to start with, so the cooler side is down. It's very hot, but I don't want it to burn. A little dab, spin the spoons easily up, put the iron down, have your cloth ready to see if there's any excess. Judging the amount of dab, the size of the dab, is really the trick to this, if anything. I had a little excess on that time, so that was a better judgment of how much to put on. Flip it over. In the meantime, I'm taking off my other Krumkake from the dowel, and I should be ready with this one. You can see it's a nice tan color. Can you see that nice tan color? That's the way it should be. And that makes the perfect flavorful Krumkake. Again, last time, and then we'll just finish the batch and I'll be back to you later. A little dab like that. Spin the dowels down. Now this time I may have a little bit coming off there. Yep, and I thought so. Okay, just wipe that off with a paper towel. And be careful, this is very hot. I must emphasize to you, this is very hot. And you can easily burn yourself. And by the way, you can burn yourself on these handles too. They're not insulated in any way, and they are up to temperature just the way the iron is. So when you handle this, either do it by the handle by pushing, or better yet, have a pot holder or something ready to use. All right. Now we'll spin this over to the board. Take this off. Put it down. Spin around the dowel just like that, and it is ready. Okay, we'll be back to you in a bit. So here's my last Krumkake. I'm going to easily pull that off the dowel, which I did, and now I'll put it into my pan, and you can see this is the batch of Krumkake that I just made, and they will be delicious. So now we're back in our prep area. We're all finished cooking our Krumkake, and it's time to enjoy them. And this is what they look like when they're done. You can see they're a cone, and they are hard. And the reason they call them Krumkakes is that they crumble when you eat them. So typically, you put one hand underneath like this, and you eat them like that. And any crumbs come in your hand, and you can eat those later. Delicious. And they're very nice with a cup of coffee. So I'll have a little coffee. That is so good. It's subtle flavor, the cardamom in it, the butter, very subtle. It stays with you a long time. It builds as you eat the Krumkake. That's very nice. Inside the Krumkake, you can fill it. Typically, I put heavy cream in it, or whipping cream from a can, and you can put berries and fruits in it and whatever you like, and then eat it that way. And I'll tell you, it is delicious. This is part of my Norwegian heritage that was taught to me by my grandmother years and years and years ago. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it was instructional. I'll see you next time.